microphones that can go around the room in the event that you want to ask a question or two. But I thought I would get it going by just asking a couple of questions that would put a finer point on the discussion earlier. That I think it would be interesting to hear the interaction. And my first question is, having heard everything that we have heard, when do you think a more mass electrification is going to happen? And I'm asking you to get out your crystal ball and to, do the Carnac thing. But obviously it's a cost issue, and as we've seen in other technologies, if it's just in the luxury segment, it's not going to be where we want to go. So when will this technology be available to the average person versus a novelty on the roads? And I'll just throw it open to the group. Charles, maybe you want to start.
I'd be happy to start. I think I addressed, let's say, the summary points, but I think from our perspective, we're seeing China probably being the #1 market for EV deployment, and that's principally because the incentives that they've put in place, and this is obviously best news for Volvo, given their new owner, but if you look at 60,000 RMB of incentive credits by the federal government, and then in certain provinces, like in the Zhejiang region, which is near, includes Shanghai, it's the most, let's say, economically profitable region, has doubled that to an additional 60,000 RMB. So that works out to about $18,000 of tax credits. So I think in my work there, and we have a JV partner there on the battery side named Wangsheng. And so we've spent some time there, and Wangcheng is actually just down the street from Geely. But from what we've seen, I think the Chinese see population growth and the need to put 500 million cars on the road in the next 20 years as that there's basically, let's say, to say it's more straightforward, there's not enough oil in the world to increase the fleet, the total global fleet of 1 billion cars to 1.5 billion cars. Oil clearly is going to continue to move in one direction, and when you're putting that many cars on the road, you can't help but have the requirement to start with electrification. So I think they're doing it, and they've just said we're going to write checks to do it. I think in the rest of the world, whether it be Europe or the US, I think, again, this three-pronged strategy of having the car companies, the battery companies, and the infrastructure companies needing to time it and work together a little bit more. And so I think, again, 2013, 20 to 15 timeframe is when you'll see a little bit more mass deployment, and I think that's when you start to see the hockey stick take off. And so I think that's sort of how we see the world developing.
I think that we have one very clear challenge from our side, and that is that we have to convince the consumer that an electric vehicle is actually solving most of the problems of mobility in the world. That will take some time, and the only way to do that is to get the cars out in the marketplace to do this demonstration purpose. And to do that, we need to also join forces between cities, governments, us as manufacturers, but also other interested parties to get some kind of reasonable equation out in the beginning. I think when people have been driving an electric vehicle for a while, they understand how repetitive and predictable they are, then this range anxiety discussion will go away, and you are actually not compromising your lifestyle, you are enriching your lifestyle because you feel better afterwards. So this is kind of a 2 to 3 year period when there's enough maturity out in the marketplace that yes, this is absolutely fantastic. Then, of course, the demand and the possibilities for volumes will increase. But again, the business equation must work out.
But that's very astute, Leonard, and I think that the consumer economy dictates that consumers are only going to put a certain value on saving the planet. They will put a much higher value on saving their pocketbook and satisfying their own personal needs for utility, for comfort, and so forth. To that end, insofar as cost is still a major consideration, does the government have plans to provide significant incentives based on the social cost of oil and actually calculating the externalities of what it costs us to continue in an oil-based economy. Does the government have plans to factor that into its cost incentives, both for manufacturing and for consumers?
I can address that in part anyway. Is microphone on?
Yes.
The social cost of carbon is the calculation that the government applies for that, and that is part of the calculation we used in the last round of corporate average fuel economy, and there's no reason to expect that that will not be part of the calculation the next round of corporate average fuel economy. So the government does recognize that there is a social cost, and we have a mechanism, imperfect, and will need to be refined as we go forward, but to do exactly that, Jack.
Any other comments?
I have a comment to make. Go ahead. Sorry. First of all, when you talk, when you ask when is electrification breaking through, we have to define what electrification means. I think we will have in this transition period from fossil fuels to alternative fuels electrification, we will see a lot of hybrids, models, which we could count already as electric vehicles or electrificated vehicles, hybrids, plug-in hybrids, start-stop, for example, brake recuperation, and so on and so on. This is all electrification of the vehicles. With these vehicles, we will see, first of all, a better consumer acceptance. And very important as well, I think that for manufacturers, this can be built up profitable. One thing why electric vehicles, pure electric vehicles, are not truly breaking through is the bottom line of the manufacturers. I have not yet seen any of the manufacturers who could do this, build this up in a profitable way. That's why the cost should and must come down. I really support also the approach of separating the battery and the cost of usage, a battery, cost of ownership from the vehicle price. That could be a model, but the costs are still too high to make that feasible at this moment, and that will take time. So that's why I'm saying in 10 years we will see globally, based on a global market of, let's say, at that time around 100 million vehicles per year, we will see around 3 to 5 million pure electric vehicles. So
just to sort of continue down that theme, and actually earlier you, in your discussion, you talked about the evolution of electrification. From a policymaker's standpoint, is a total electric vehicle the right policy choice for America versus spending time in these intermediate choices like gasoline electric hybrids and other technologies, just in terms of the cost of total CO2 per kilowatt hour? What makes the most policy sense, taking into account the fact that manufacturers actually have to make something that people are going to want to buy?
Well, we have our friend from DOT who could chime in on CAFE, on corporate average fuel economy standards, which I think goes about it the right way. It doesn't say how you have to reach the target. It says, here's the target, choose the best combination of technologies it takes to get there. And if that's a plug-in hybrid or an all-electric or a hybrid or a mix of those, let the manufacturer decide how to meet those targets. And I don't believe, the problem right now is, for instance, an all-electric vehicle, you're going to have some limitations in that marketplace right now just because of lack of infrastructure, because of range anxiety. So we wouldn't want to dictate that solution, that's for sure.
I certainly want to second what Pat said. And frankly, we think the answer is going to be all of the above, because some of the manufacturers have already indicated they think the solution that they see at some point becoming profitable and something where they will get some penetration into the marketplace in real numbers is the pure battery electric vehicle. Other ones are placing their bets on the hybrid, the plug-in hybrids. Different manufacturers have different business models. Frankly, different consumers have different choices. And you're going to find some communities that decide to invest maybe they decide to invest because their local manufacturer has a pure battery electric vehicle, so that community wants to invest in the fast charging stations and the infrastructure needed to avoid the range anxiety to make that solution work. But you will get different answers in different parts of the country, and you'll get different answers from different consumers, and you'll get different answers from different manufacturers. And we think, at least on an interim basis, all the answers are the right answer, and you can let the marketplace decide really over the course of time which of these are the best solutions to achieve the overall goals of achieving energy independence.